the British ruling class and radical Islam. The radical Islamic organization Muslim Brotherhood, which emerged at the beginning of the 20th century with the assistance of the British Secret Services, has since served as a strike force for the British Crown. Explaining this collaboration, British historian Mark Curtis writes in his book, Secret Affairs: Britain's Collusion with Radical Islam. British governments have colluded with radical Islamic forces, including terrorist organizations, for decades. They have worked alongside them and sometimes trained and financed them. This collusion contributes to two key British foreign policy goals: securing influence and control over key energy resources and undermining secular nationalist regimes in the Middle East and Central Asia. In his book, The Muslim Brotherhood, The Globalist's Secret Weapon, American writer Peter Goodgame notes that the ideological affinity between the British ruling class and radical Islamic leaders is explained by their shared hostility to the idea of a sovereign nation-state. A brief historical overview will help us uncover London's connections to radical Islam, including the Muslim Brotherhood and its Palestinian wing, Hamas. In 1871, German engineers supervising the construction of the Berlin-Baghdad Railway discovered rich oil deposits in the Ottoman province of Mosul, now in Iraq. Germany soon entered into an agreement with the Ottoman Empire to exploit these deposits. The plan was for the Mesopotamian oil to be transported to Europe via the future railway, providing Germany with energy independence in the coming oil era. However, this project threatened the interests of the British Empire. The Berlin-Baghdad Railway was becoming not only a transport, but also a geopolitical competitor to the Suez Canal Company, 44% of whose shares were owned by Great Britain. Even more dangerous for London was the economic union between Germany and the Ottoman Empire, which opened up access to Middle Eastern oil for Berlin. The answer was a British plan to destroy the Ottoman Empire, seize the Mesopotamian oil fields, and build a pipeline from the Mosul area to the port of Haifa, a future refueling point for British oil tankers. The Kirkuk-Haifa oil pipeline will enter service in 1934. The British planned to destroy the Ottoman Empire by organizing an Arab revolt, pitting the Arabs against their Turkish co-religionists. However, since Islam forbids Muslims from fighting each other, British intelligence agencies used the radical Islamic movement of Salafism to rouse the Arab masses against the Ottoman apostates. The Arab Revolt of 1916–18 helped the Allied forces drive the Ottomans out of the Middle East and played a role in the destruction of the Ottoman Empire. Having established control over the Middle East, Britain faced a new challenge: maintaining its positions. To this end, in 1928, with the assistance of British intelligence, the Salafist organization Muslim Brotherhood was founded, which soon became London's strike force in the region. The founders of the Muslim Brotherhood, Hassan al-Banna and Rashid Rida, were closely connected with British intelligence, which at that time was supervised in the Middle East by a British intelligence officer, Professor Arnold Toynbee. Rashid Rida was a student of Muhammad Abduh, a teacher at the Islamic University of Al-Azhar, the Grand Mufti of Egypt, and, according to a number of sources, an English Freemason. Abduh, in turn, was a student of Jamaluddin al-Afghani, the founder of Pan-Islamism, an agent of the British Secret Service, and a Freemason of the Grand Lodge of England. From its earliest days, the Muslim Brotherhood received funding from the Suez Canal Company, a key instrument of British imperialism in Egypt. Notably, the Brotherhood's headquarters were located on the second floor of the Suez Canal Company building in the port city of Ismailia. Moreover, the company helped al-Banna build the first Muslim Brotherhood mosque, which opened in 1930. Since its founding, the Muslim Brotherhood has served as an instrument of British policy in the Middle East, acting as shock troops aimed at overthrowing regimes and eliminating leaders pursuing sovereign nationalist policies. Among the most notorious terrorist acts and coups d'état carried out by this organization in the interests of London are the following: the assassination of Jordan's King Abdullah in 1951, which was revenge for his collusion with Israel during the 1948 war and for trying to conclude a peace agreement with Israel. An assassination attempt on Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser in 1954 in response to his plan to nationalize the Suez Canal. The assassination of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat in 1981 was punishment for signing a peace treaty with Israel. The 2011 Egyptian revolution that led to the overthrow of the secular regime of Hosni Mubarak and the rise to power of the Muslim Brotherhood led by Mohammed Morsi. The Hamas attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, accompanied by a massacre of civilians. This attack fits into the traditionally hostile course towards Israel of the British Foreign Office and its intelligence service MI6. Since the foundation of Israel in 1948, the policy of the Foreign Office and its intelligence services has been aimed at weakening and even eliminating the Jewish state. According to Jonathan Spire, a researcher at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, British diplomatic approach views Israel primarily as an irritant, as a factor complicating Britain's relations with the Arab world. Israel is seen as the cause, rather than one of the victims, of radicalism, instability, and anti-Western sentiment in the Arab world. This concept has always prevailed in the Foreign Office, and it is this concept that has the final say in the implementation and interpretation of British policy. British intelligence agencies not only oversee radical Islamic organizations, but also have the ability to shape public opinion in the Arab world. In 2014, Qatari media company Fawdat Media founded the London-based Arab news agency, The New Arab, which has become one of the most influential and popular in the Arab world. Reaching over 500 million people worldwide, Fawdat Media is one of the largest media networks. The printed and digital versions of the New Arab newspaper are distributed in both Arab and Western countries, including the UK, Qatar, Turkey, Tunisia, Morocco, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Germany, Spain, Austria, and Switzerland. It is distributed in 158 cities, 10 airports, Qatar Airways and Turkish Airlines flights, 750 hotels and community centers, 1,770 points of sale, and 360 Arab embassies and consulates worldwide. With such a powerful propaganda tool, London has the ability to shape public opinion both on the Arab street in the Middle East and among the Arab diasporas in Europe and the United States. Given the high level of suggestibility and religious sensitivity of the Arab population, British intelligence agencies are capable of not only provoking mass anti-government protests, but also directing Muslim mobs to commit pogroms and religious purges. In recent decades, the British ruling class has been actively using radical Islam to destroy civilization. In 1961, the British establishment moved the headquarters of the Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt to London, saving its proxy structure from liquidation by the regime of President Nasser. Another aim of this move was to use radical Islam to strengthen the power of the ruling elites through the barbarization and degradation of society in Britain and Western Europe. The Russian historian Andrei Fursov spoke about how the degradation of society contributes to the strengthening of the power of the ruling class. According to Ashby's law, the controlling subsystem must be more complex than the system it controls. Only in this case can the system develop normally, and the managers will retain their positions. For 200 years, since the active beginning of the Industrial Revolution, the Western upper classes were more complex in terms of organization, science, technology, and culture than the lower classes and the middle class. This was ensured by scientific and technical progress, which at the same time constantly increased the social and educational level of complexity of society. At some point, this level began to threaten the positions of the top, and they consciously went for its reduction. Feeling the danger for themselves in further progress, they bet on the degradation of the bulk of the population. In order for a relatively dumb person to be able to govern, the governed must be even dumber. Muslim immigration plays a major role in the barbarization of Europe, a process that has taken on the character of an invasion since the creation of the European Union. According to Evgeny Gilbo, the destruction of European society is being carried out by the British ruling class through the targeted suppression of the cultural hegemony of the indigenous ethnic groups of the white race and the imposition of dominance by alien, anti-civilizational ethnic groups who profess Islam. Conclusion. After the collapse of the socialist bloc in Czechoslovakia, a lustration procedure was carried out, which resulted in the restrictions of the rights of representatives of the former communist elite. They were banned from participating in elections and holding positions related to government. Today, it is increasingly clear that without a deep lustration of the British ruling class, it is impossible to solve the problem of eliminating radical Islam and preserving the foundations of European civilization. A link to the article text with sources is provided below this video. Thank you for your attention.